Hello, everybody. Welcome to the first episode of the Chuck It Down podcast. This is a collaboration between Simplified Lean Solutions and Bussell Lean Associates. My name is James Bussell, and we have with us Chuck Carlton.
Hello, everybody.
So we're very excited, and this is an experiment that we're doing, and we're going to get better as we do this, but Chuck and I are collaborating together, and we have a lot of exciting things in store for you. And we're going to be doing this every week. And we're very, very, very excited. And you think you'll get a lot of value out of this. And Chuck, why don't you give your bio, just a quick bio so everyone knows who you are. And then I'll talk about myself, and then we'll move into the festivities.
Sure. Thanks, James. I've been in the lean manufacturing world since 1995 when I first did the Lego plane assembly, and it just hit right home with me. And I started learning ever since. I learned some of the best people in the world. Fortunately, I've been around them, some of them being your father, Jerry Bussell or Jay Bussell, Mike Hoseas from the Toyota, and John Shook and others. So I've been around a lot of really intelligent people. I've learned. I've tried things, I've made mistakes, but I've been doing this a long time. I started as an assembler on the line assembling, and 15 years later, I'm vice president of operations and supply chain and leading engineering, leading departments I've never worked in. But my leadership training and those things helped me prepare for that. So, this podcast is going to be about that, understanding your issues, your triumphs, your failures, and sharing those. Our job as the lean world is to share with everybody and learn and steal shamelessly. And I've done that. And this podcast is going to be about that. Every week we'll talk about things you want to talk about. We'll talk about certain topics we have that we want to share, but it'll be a lot of fun, and I'm excited to get going.
My name is James Bussell, and you might have heard the name when Chuck was talking about his mentor, Jerry Bussell, who just so happens to be my father and is the reason that I am so passionate about lean. And we're going to talk more about him during this podcast series and potentially have him as a guest. So what I am, my background is I am the executive director of the Jacksonville Lean Consortium, and we're a member-based organization that collaborates through lean thinking and problem solving. We offer training, we offer site visits, opportunities like webinars, materials, different things to get this lean movement rolling. I am the president of Bussell Lean Associates, which is a lean advisory firm that is in a teaming agreement with Chuck's firm, Simplified Lean Solutions. We offer everything from enterprise-wide lean transformations to certification training to Kaizen event support to leadership coaching. And we're teaming up and we're pooling our resources. I'm based in Jacksonville, Florida. Chuck is in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, but frequents the Jacksonville area. And I'll also be frequenting the Dallas-Fort Worth area. But just quick backstory for me. I am a Florida attorney, and I grew up around lean, especially with my father. He was so passionate about it. And I rolled my eyes like, this lean thing, I just don't get it. And I went to law school because that's what most people do when they have no idea what they want to do with their lives. And I started practicing law, and then the light bulb went on. Lean. This is what I want to do. Oh my gosh. My father was on to something. This makes sense because what I was seeing that we weren't providing value to the firm's clients. And then I could only take so much, and I came to my dad and I'm like, I want to do this for a living. Do you want to go into business together with Bussell Lean Associates? And I like to say it's one of the happiest days of his life, crying happy tears. And I had the fortune to be able to work under him for over 10 years. And then we've had a transition since he's retired that I am taking the lead with Bussell Lean Associates. Chuck was mentored by my father even longer. And so that's a shared connection. But Chuck and I have built a really strong relationship of friends, and I consider him a mentor, and we bounce ideas off each other, and we're just very excited for the ability to work together. We want to talk about what the purpose of this podcast is and why you're asking why it's called Chuck It Down. So, Chuck, why don't you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. The term "chuck it down" came from "dumb it down." It started years ago where I'm vice president of operations, and change orders came through me for signatures, and a lot of work instructions I could see were too difficult, and I knew that would be difficult for the experts on the floor to follow. So I created this "chuck it down," saying, "I'm going to take your work instruction and I'm going to follow it with no help from you. And if I can build a quality product the first time, then you're ready. That work instruction's ready to go." So it's just a play off of "dumb it down." I use "chuck it down" because, again, I always like to share with people that I'm not the brightest in the room, and I never have been the brightest in the room. So I needed to simplify it so that my brain could understand it. And turns out God blessed me with that ability to take difficult things and to simplify it for myself, and simplifying it for myself seemed to work out well when it came to everybody else. So that's where Chuck It Down started. It didn't get famous till years later when Jay Bussell, James's dad, he spoke of, wrote the book Anatomy of a Lean Leader. He talks about the different behaviors of leaders and what a lean leader should be doing. And one of the chapters is around problem solving. And I'd worked with him for a long time and learned from him a great deal. And under problem solving, he put me in there around the "chuck it down." He put the phrase "chuck it down," and because the thing there was we were trying to do too much at one time. So I would tell the team often, look, we're not trying to solve world hunger. We're just trying to find the hungriest family and feed them, and then we'll go find the next hungriest family and feed them. And we continuously do this until we solve world hunger. We may never get there, but we always go there. That's where it came. It was put into this book, and people started knowing me as Chuck It Down. So I took that. I was proud of it, and I built off it. So I used that over the years, not only in work instructions, but I started using it with 6S, with lean in general. And people would always ask me, well, how do you chuck this down? And we would work together and we would do that. We would simplify it to where even Chuck could understand it. So I shared that. I've tried a lot of it. It's worked well. Then I adjusted it to problem solving. I knew that from a lean perspective, if you're not good at problem solving, you're going to struggle. You're going to continuously fight the same battles over and over and over. And our teams, we had those failures. It looks like we were hitting replay on Kaizen events. We were doing them over and over because we were only symptoms. Meaning that I wanted to take problem solving and see if I could chuck it down. I knew at that point I didn't want to bring in specialists, black belts, master black belts, those things. Those guys are very smart and they're good at what they do, but a lot of times those don't sustain because it's somebody doing it to the team. And I wanted the whole team to be involved. And I knew that through my time of becoming a master black belt, I had learned to make, it's what we used at Medtronic. I still struggled. I struggled with each phase. I mean, DMAIC's pretty simple: define, measure, analyze, implement, control. But I still struggled in what do we do and define? And, do we do charter statements? So I struggled there. And even in measure, what I started finding is there's a lot of waste in measure. There's an overproduction, overprocessing. We were measuring far more than we needed. And sometimes that overmeasuring led to assumptions. Assumptions led to the wrong corrective actions. And here we are again. The problem comes back. It was the same with PDCA. I learned PDCA. I practiced it. But again, under plan, what's the standard work? What do we do in plan? And as I traveled around the world, I've been fortunate to tour hundreds of companies that are doing lean and doing the transformations. I often ask, you use PDCA, so what do I do in plan? And the main theme I would get was, well, you do everything. And to me, that just wasn't simple enough. So we had to chuck it down. So I took the chuck it down philosophy, the dumb it down, and I put that into problem solving and created my own. I took methods that I know have proven to work and that people are really good at, whether it be DMAIC, PDCA, Kepner, Trago, Shannon. I've learned a great deal of them. And I just started seeing it. If I can take a piece from this tool, throw in other tools, 5Y, is or is not, those things, I could actually create a roadmap for identifying true root cause and stop treating the symptoms. So I wrote the book about the 11 steps. It'll be out soon. It's with the publisher now. I'm very excited about
Yeah.
releasing that book and having you read it and give me feedback on how we can chuck it down more, if you will. Uh,
Thank you, Chuck. I think that gives great context to all our viewers and listeners. And what really resonates with me is coming up with a standardized yet simplified approach to be able to do this so that it's not just the black belts, which nothing against black belts, but it's something that everyone everywhere can do, even the frontline supervisors. Is that
yeah,
what you had in mind when you were developing this philosophy?
master black belt. I became a
Mhm.
master black belt years ago. Those guys are valuable, but you have to incorporate them with the team. You have to have the team involved in the problem solving so that they know what you're doing. If you bring in somebody like me or other more intelligent people, they're going to know what to do, but they're going to lose the team. And then when you lose the team, you're in trouble. So there's a great place on the teams for somebody with the skills of a master black belt or black
Good.
belt, green belt, whatever it may be. We need those guys, but we need the team involved. We need everybody understanding the standard work for solving problems. We know that if we have the standard work, we reduce variation. So we wanted to develop this is our standard work so that everybody knew they knew where we were, they knew where we were headed, and we're going to use the talents of the black belts and the green belts and the yellows to help us put data together, to help us go through certain phases of it. But overall, we wanted the entire team to understand how to solve problems and the road we were going to take to do that.
Excellent. Excellent. And the goal of this podcast is going to focus a lot on problem solving. We're going to talk about how we can use this approach. And this is the approach Chuck and I use together when we work with clients and also when we work with members of the Jacksonville Lean Consortium. But Chuck, I have a question about the complexity of problem solving methods. And what did you see from the previous methods that led you to want to create this method? You mentioned different methodologies. What can you give some background on that?
Sure. I was fortunate enough to go and learn several different methodologies, some of them way over my head.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them, although I understood and it did provide some kind of cadence, wasn't just chucked it down enough for me, like I mentioned earlier, to make and define. I've sat with several teams and they all do define a little different. Some create
Mm-hmm.
fancy charter statements, which are great. Some minimize it. And I just struggled with, okay, which way is the best way? Same with measure. What do I measure? For example, we had a labeling issue on our product in one of the facilities I worked for. And we went and under measure, we mapped every labeling process in the building, which there were 34 of them. And I
Wow.
realized only 32 of them didn't have a problem. Two of them did. So why am I measuring and mapping all 34? What I need to do is understand where the problem is, and it was with two, so that narrowed my focus. I said, okay, that's what I need, and that's why I added those steps into measure. And a lot of times, the teams we're trying to solve world hunger. We're going after everything. For example, if our goal for first pass yield was 98% off the line, we were at 85, 90, whatever it may be, we would try to solve all those issues in one Kaizen event.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, it just never made sense that one root cause was the cause of all the failures. It's not, but we would try to do that. And we would run out of time during the week. So we put in some countermeasures and we didn't solve it. To my point earlier, we're trying to solve world hunger instead of finding the hungriest family and feeding them. So it really helped me with those phases to say, what exactly am I doing? And it helped with the team. There's many Kaizen events where there were me and there's
You
some
are
intelligent people in there, and they knew what to do, and which was great. They knew DMAIC and they knew what they needed to do in each phase, but they'd lose the team. So now instead of starting with 10 people, we're down to two smart people and the other eight are just along for the ride. And that's not what I wanted. I learned a long time ago that a leader's job is to develop their team. Toyota says it best when they say, we build people, people build cars. And that was the philosophy I wanted. I wanted to build people to where everybody understands it. If I had two master black belts or two belts, our transformation was as fast as those two could work. And what we found was we were overburdening them, which is, again, one of the waste. We're overburdening them. We're really tiring them out. And we did the same thing a lot of companies do. We reward the best workers with more work. And I said, we need to increase this. We need to transform our organization faster. And the only way we were going to do that is to have everybody understand how to solve problems and to make sure that everybody was following the standard work. That standard work could have been chuck it down. It could be to make, whatever it may be. But once we decided what that standard work was, we were all going to follow it to a T. That's what we do. In the lean world, it's follow standard work. So the team chose the chuck it down method, which was great. That became our standard. And that's what every Kaizen, every team followed in our organization. And we increased our transformation 3x.
That's excellent. That's excellent. Really gives the in-depth why about this, why you would want to do this. And so with problem solving and Kaizens tending to be the focus of lean, because with lean, based off the Toyota model, you have your current state and then you have what's actually going on and you try to bridge the gap. And to what Chuck said, might not be able to bridge the gap completely. There might be multiple causes that we're doing. We want to do this incrementally. So we're taking, for the analogy of a giant chocolate chip cookie, you don't want to eat all at once. You want to take, one bite at a time, but you want to move it forward with what we're doing. So Chuck, why don't you give us some insight into how to use this methodology when you have a recurring problem in an organization?
Sure. Need to give credit where credit's due. 80%, 85% of that came from Toyota 8D, and I learned Toyota 8D. A lot of their methodologies are in the chuck it down. So I definitely want to give credit where credit's due, but that's where it's built. I wanted it to be simple. I wanted it to be easy. So we created it and we've tried it over and over and over again, whether it be in medical device, whether it be in a sheriff's office, I've done it there, or whether it be even in NFL concessions, we've used the chuck it down approach there. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the first step is to understand your gap. Where do you want to be? Seen teams struggle with this. I sat with a team one time where we're trying to develop a charter statement, and we worked over almost 4 hours on a charter statement, wordsmithing it, getting it to sound right. And I was confused and I can't help but speak up. So I called a timeout and I just said, how do we know we need to be here?
The purpose.
The team came back and said, what do you mean? I said, well, you looked at something that said we needed to be here. And they said, oh, well, we're not meeting this goal. Okay. What is the goal and where should you be? What's your standard? I learned from Toyota and Michael Zayas a lot about you have to have a standard. So that's where your KPIs and other things come in. Your KPIs is standard. We normally run at a 98% first pass yield on this line. In the last week, we were at 80%. So we have 18%. That's the first step, is understanding the gap. That's what we're trying to go after. Then that's the define phase of you're in DMAIC. And then when you get into measure, it's let's break down that problem even more. We're going to ask the questions about what is the type of defects. And you have 4 different defects, then we're going to take the largest one. And we'll say, okay, this is our largest defect. Where is that happening? Is it happening on one line more than the other? One shift more than the other? One area? Is it one operator more than the other? So you're trying to take that gap and narrow down your focus to what we call the focus point. What area do we need to go look at? We have a huge facility, or a major department. Where do we look? And we can narrow it down to one focus area. It's this product on this line. Okay. The data tells us that. We can support that with facts. We Paretoed the who, what, when, where, followed the largest one. And we came to this focus area. Then when we do that, now that we know what area we need to go look at, now what we're trying to find is the focus point. Where in that process? We've narrowed it down to the process we want to look at, but now we got to go further and say, what step do we want to look at? Where do we deep dive? And to do that, we identify where the problem is found and we walk backwards through that process until the problem goes away. So once you do that, you say, look, it doesn't have the problem at step one, but after step two, we now see the problem come up. Well, then step two is my focus point. I'm going to go deep dive into that. I'm not going to go try to look at labeling practices for 34 or 40 different lines. I'm going to look at this specific line and what they're doing, and specifically this part of that process. So we narrowed it down to that. It really narrows your focus. So you're not going after world hunger to the point I mentioned earlier. We're going after this is the hungriest family. Let's fix that. So we found our focus point, and now we're going to watch. And the main theme behind Chuck It Down and Toyota 8D as well is go and see. We're not going to just sit in the conference room and try to solve this. We're going to go and see. So we force those behaviors because my mentor, Mike Hoseas, one of my mentors, mentioned to me, he said, if you watch the process long enough, the problem will slap you in the face. So we
I
wanted
love
our
that.
process to force that behavior. And that's what we've done. We've created a process that relies on data to lead you to your focus point. And then we're going to go and see. And then we go through the other phases. But that's how we developed it to force facts. My mentor, Jay, we talk about a lot here. I knew the questions he was going to ask when I had a problem. I knew he was going to ask me, well, what was the area you went and looked at? What step did you look at? And he made me a great problem solver by the questions he was going to ask.
Mm-hmm.
And I built my process to Chuck It Down around those questions. I wanted to be ready for him when he asked. So I could say, yeah, Jay, this data shows it right here. Here's the data here that proves this is the focus point. I didn't have the problem before this step. The problem comes up immediately after that step. So I now know that that's the point I'm going to go do my deep dive in, watch, and then go through the rest of the process with. So the questions made me a better problem solver. I wanted to include my process, those questions in my process so that you can answer those because I knew it was going to create a better problem solving methodology.
Absolutely. And Chuck, this reminds me of we've had plenty of conversations about this and we've dealt with this in many implementations and some of our failures. But I don't want 3M, the corporation, to get mad at me. But often it's death by sticky note, we're finding in a conference room before we're even going to the floor to actually walk the process. We'll talk about as we go along, walking the benefits of walking the process backwards, correct? And
Yeah, you have to go after facts. I sat with an R&D team and I said, let's map the process. They pulled out the work instruction. And I said, I don't want to map your work instructions. I want to map the process. I want to go and see. Let's go look at your last 3 development products and let's walk through that process together and what you did. And 95% of the time, what we found was what they were doing did not match what their procedures or processes even say. So we didn't want to map the process. We wanted to map reality. I tell a lot of stories in my book through each step that I've seen and why I developed that step. For example, we use the fishbone a lot. And I tell stories about the fishbone itself and how we adapted it to say we're only going to put on the fishbone what we've seen or that we can prove happened with data or facts. So we weren't going to sit there and just brainstorm and throw everything on the board. I tell a story about a medical device company that had a lot of really smart, intelligent people in the room, engineers and leaders and others. And they started their fishbone and they had 116 items on that fishbone. I had to call a timeout again and say, how are we going to go after 116 things? If we're doing this simultaneously, how do we know which one actually corrected the issue? So we built a fishbone off of watching the process. We knew where our focus point was. We went, we watched relentlessly. We seen things. When we seen them, we put those on the fishbone. So it forces facts, it forces data, and it forces observation, which is the key behind it.
so One of our main goals for this podcast is this is not going to be dry. We're going to show hands-on experience, and just as Chuck developed before that. But that just gets me to thinking how Chuck considers himself a dummy, which he's very far from that, but it's the humility that is just incredible, and really the power of being a lean leader. If you want to be a lean leader, admit your failures. You're going to get more buy-in from the team that you're going to do this together. You're not going to do that to them. But this just gets me thinking of another famous dummy who really relates to what you're saying is Yogi Berra, the famous Yankee catcher, who's one of the great leaders of all time. And Yogi-isms were around. There's so many of them, but my favorite is you can observe a lot by watching. And to me, it sounds silly, but that's really the power of this. Go to the floor, talk to the people, observe. Don't trust what a dashboard is telling you with the data. Actually go to where the machine is. Go see what actually is happening. And there's real power to that. And that's why I'm so passionate about this approach. And I know Chuck is as well. And so, Chuck, can you talk a little bit about that power of going to see and actually gathering facts rather than relying on assumptions?
I have worked around the world, India, China, Germany, all around the world with problem solving. And I love to first observe what those teams are doing and how they attack problems. It's my passion is problem solving. And I watched and I seen several teams that, again, it's trying to solve the problem from the conference room, or it's assuming we think it's this because of this. I wanted to eliminate that, and I knew that I needed to. So I watched a lot of movies, and one of the greatest lines that ever came to me from a movie was from a movie, Law by a Citizen, where the attorney tells the client, it's what you can prove in court. So I implemented that into Chuck It Down problem solving. You have to have facts. You can't assume. We're going to have facts. So if you're going to put something up or you're going to say something, you got to have the facts to back it up. So it forced those behaviors. Another behavior was keep it simple. And that was something I wanted to do with Chuck It Down. I remember Jay walking into my office one morning saying hello to me. He immediately turns to my whiteboard behind him and he writes at the top, it's very difficult to make things easy, but very easy to make things difficult. And that stuck with me. I wanted this Chuck It Down approach to be something that was simple, but it worked. So we developed this process and tried it over and over around the world through several different areas. I get challenged a great deal when I teach this. Chuck, this is simple, but I think it's too simple. I don't know that it'll work for us. So I accept the challenge. Give me your biggest problem or a problem you want to tackle, and let's just follow the steps together. Keep an open mind, force facts, force data, force observation, and I've never lost. We've always found it. We've always proved a lot of assumptions wrong because there's a lot of leaders that go in, or even smart people that go in saying, I know what the problem is. But we're able to prove them wrong many times by following this process. And it's worked for me. It's never failed me. And it's something that I wanted to share with the world. This process is not for the master black belts that are very good at DMAIC. That's great. I just wasn't. So I wanted to build a process for people like me that may struggle with what do I do in Define or what do I do in this in P under PDCA. I wanted this to be for them. I hope that they get as much out of this as I've gotten using the process and traveling the world teaching it and showing people the power of it.
Great Expectations is one of my favorite novels, and the movie's outstanding as well. And this is something, Chuck, I'm assuming you probably haven't read or seen, but going through Dickens' work, it's all about facts and evidence throughout all his novels, like about that's what's important. And so in Great Expectations, Pip, the famous character there, is looking, he had a benefactor who made him a gentleman, so to speak, like in Victorian England. And he's assuming who it is. And then his lawyer has this great line, take nothing on its looks, take everything on evidence. There's no better rule. And to me, I don't know if that went over anybody's heads with, the Charles Dickens reference, but to me, that's the basis of what we're doing and why this is important, because I, I see too many companies, and when Chuck go in there's some places that do this well, but so many places they're just assuming they know what's going on without talking to the people, without actually walking the process, and you're gonna get burnt that way. And so this is a way, the chuck it down method is a way to prevent that from happening. It's simple, but it's also a disciplined approach to make sure you're not skipping steps.
Yeah, you guys are going to see why I've teamed up with James and why we're a great duo. He's the brains, I'm the go-doer. He's going to refer from Dickens and famous books. I'm going to refer from Dateline episodes and movies. So you were a good fit from that standpoint. But
you'll hear some Step Brothers and Ricky Bobby references
there
from
you go.
me too. So it's just
So we're a good fit and we're a good team. We both believe the same things. We both think alike in some cases, although mine isn't as detailed as his, but we work well together and we're excited about doing these podcasts. We're not afraid to make mistakes. We're going to chuck it down podcasting. We're just learning this. We'll chuck this down and get better. But the thing about James and I is we're not afraid to make mistakes and to look silly. I lived my whole life that way. So we're excited about this. It's fun. I love talking about this. I love sharing what I've done wrong to prevent you from following those same mistakes. I want you to follow what I learned from those mistakes. So I'll share a great deal of mistakes. Fail often to succeed faster is another phrase that I learned. And I do that. And I'm not afraid to do that. So we're going to have a blast. We're going to involve you.
It's going to be awesome.
And we're going to have a great time.
Can you just tell our audience what they can expect from this book?
Well, from the book, hopefully what you're going to see is it's not a lecture and it's not me just telling you what to do. It's actually telling you each step and giving examples in other areas that I've used it in, being sheriff's office, NFL teams, human resources, finance, medical device. I've used this around the world in several different areas and several different processes. So hopefully you'll see this as you're walking with me and you're learning like I learned. I added tools to chuck it down when I run into issues. For example, we talk about going and seeing, watching. One of the companies I work with, the defect or the process was done a year ago. I couldn't go watch the process today and prove without a benefit of the doubt that that's what was happening a year ago. So I had to add DOE's, design of experiments, into that phase of chuck it down to recreate the problem and use what I did to recreate the problem on my fishbone. So you'll see how I've learned and adjusted. You'll see the problems and the mistakes I've made. You'll see how it's worked in different areas. I hope that you see it as a conversation of me, just one person to the other, walking you through how I developed it and the meaning behind it and how it works. That's what I want to get out of the book. I hope people enjoy it. I've done 12 transformations with organizations and none of them are the same. We have to adapt to fit their culture and how they work and what they value. So we adapt it every time. It's never the same journey. The first step is success. So they go do success, but they don't understand the real reason behind success. I've seen companies implement Kanban and they don't understand the real reason for Kanban, daily huddles. Well, it's in the book. This is what you do. First, you do success. I've seen people create U-shaped cells that they didn't need U-shaped cells and they didn't understand the reason. And that's why Toyota and others will have you come in and tour them, because they know you're going to copy what they do. You're not going to understand why they did it. Yeah. Our job is to teach the why and adapt it to fit our culture.
Problem solving and lean transformations in general are a situational approach. There are certain things that are non-negotiables, like you're going to want to have standard work, but it fits what you do as an organization. But the importance of this is, how do you get something that's standardized that everyone can follow? One other thing that is very exciting about our collaboration, and you guys will find out, those that don't already know us, is we are very humble. We're saying we're humble. I don't know what exactly. You'd have to be the judge for that. But we're also showmen, me and Chuck. And the thing that we found and we learned from my father too is you have to get people's buy-in, show your vulnerability, but also don't, it's okay to look silly, right? I remember my father had the costume. He was Lean Powers, and he dressed up as Austin Powers. Lean Powers doesn't even make sense, but yet he did a terrible impression, went on stage, and then everyone's on board on the front line about this. If a leader's willing and show, but make this fun. Make it exciting. Problem solving shouldn't be a tedious process. Yes, it's serious business, but you want to have fun. And that's how you build that army of problem solvers, is to make it, and they're going to remember the fun stuff. They're going to remember the creativity. And so we're going to bring a lot of that to you, and I think you'll enjoy it.
You're exactly right. I learned from the Toyota principles, the two that I'm still stuck on is lead with humility and respect for people. So I had to realize that I'm not the smartest person in the room, which is easy for me because 10 minutes of speaking, you'll see that I'm not. But realize I'm not, and I'm not supposed to have the answers as a leader. I'm supposed to ask the questions, and I want the team to have fun doing so. We've done several things throughout my career with combines. We've used ping pong balls and shot them across a facility. We've used golf balls, and we've used several things because I wanted the team to have fun, but we're still solving a problem their way. And that's the most exciting thing about lean, and is there's a million ways to solve a problem. The main goal is, though, you need to understand the problem and the root cause you're going after. It took me a while to realize that is problem solving is the foundation in my mind. The other tools in lean just help show the problem. 6S shows you the gaps in flow. Kanban shows you the gaps in lead time. The tools show you the gaps, but you have to be a good problem solver. And that's everything. If you can do a lot of the stuff that the lean world does, but if you're not identifying and solving root cause, you're going to struggle. That's why I wrote the book. That's why we're doing the podcast. And that's why we're going to work with you.
Teaming up. Yeah. Lean is about bridging the gap. It's about problem solving so you can do continuous improvement. And oftentimes when Chuck and I ask companies, why do you do 5S? Or if you're going to call it 6S, why are you doing that? So we can say we did 6S. That's missing it. It's to solve problems. It's to surface problems so we can solve them.
And those are things we'll talk about in our podcast. We'll get into 6S and the true meaning and purpose behind 6S. And are you using it to the intent, or are you using it because it makes you neat, clean, and organized, which is a benefit, but it's not the intent. We'll talk about those things, whether it's 6S, Kanban, all the other tools, Hijunkas, those things. We'll talk about those and we'll chuck them down. And we'll work together to help it work for you. Because once you understand the true reason for it, it may change the way you do things. We're going to talk about that weekly with you. We're going to have fun.
We're going to have guests.
We're going to make mistakes. We're going to, like with this first podcast, you're going to see a lot of mistakes. We'll try to edit those out, but not all of them will be edited out because we can't. Nope. But we're not afraid. We're not. That's the thing. Let's get together. Let's talk about things. We don't have to sound professional. We just have to work on the right things and get to the meaning and purpose behind things. And we'll be very successful if we do that.
And so we're going to have many guests as we go along. And this is going to be a weekly podcast. Sometimes it'll be Chuck and I having a conversation. Other times we'll have people from different industries, different leadership levels that are going to talk about their experience. And it's going to give great insight into everyone that's trying to apply continuous improvement in their organization. I want to wrap this up. As I said, I want to keep this fun and light, even when we talk about serious matters. And I just want to say I'm in Jacksonville, so I'm a diehard Jacksonville Jaguars fan. Chuck, who's your team?
Well, I'll adjust the camera so you can see.
The Dallas Cowboys.
I need to reach out to Jerry and the team and try to chuck it down on some of the things they do. Maybe if we do that, we can solve problems and win a playoff game eventually. So we'll make fun of each other, I'm sure, on that during the season.
I want to end with a trivia question. I want to see if you get. Who has more playoff wins, Blake Bortles or Dak Prescott?
That's an easy one for me because, as I mentioned, I'm a Cowboy fan. So it's Blake Bortles. It's probably every other quarterback in the world because we tend to struggle. We need to find the root cause of our playoff mishaps, and we need to chuck it down and fix that. So maybe Jerry sees this, and I'd be happy to come and help.
We're going to talk about those who want to be part of this community. We want people to keep coming back. And we want you to decide what we're going to talk about. We can go different ways. So what's valuable to you? So we're going to pose that question once we get this launched on LinkedIn. But again, like, this is going to be fun. It's going to be insightful, and you're going to get a lot out of it. And Chuck, I am over the moon with the opportunity to work with you.
Thank you, James. No, it's me, as you mentioned, it'll be a lot of fun. I'm excited to do this. Again, the purpose of this podcast, we talk about why we do things. It's to teach. It's to help. It's to pass it forward. I've worked with some great people through my career. They taught me a lot. It's my turn to pass it on, and we're going to do that. So you're going to help make this podcast better. We'll be open for suggestions. We'll have you on. But the goal is how can we help you through your troubled times in your transformation, or how do we help create better problem solving for you and your organization? So reach out, follow us, and email us and let us know how we can make it better. And we'll be happy to do that.
So for our first episode, I think it's time we say farewell.
It sure is. Thank you for watching. Those that are watching, thank you for putting up with the ums and the you knows, and those are things we'll correct. We can't edit them all out. There's too many, but we'll get better. You'll help us, and we appreciate that. So have a great day.
All right. Thanks, everybody.